Your emperor shall return.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we are getting ready for game number 2 between these two schools. It is a side swap, of course, for the second game. Means that we do have George Mason over on the blue side. Kennesaw State taking to the red side of the rift this time around. We'll see whether or not KSU can kind of fix some of the issues that they had in the draft this time, or whether or not it's going to come back to George Mason. We'll see. Another quick 20-some-odd minute beatdown.
That was, again,
Something.
based off of a very, very interesting draft choice by Kennesaw. Taking a 2-threat composition featuring a Heimerdinger. Kind of unorthodox, you know? Generally, you would do that if you have other winning lanes, right? The Heimerdinger is a great push lane, and it keeps pressure off of your jungler, right? It gives you bot lane priority, gives you drag priority. But because they didn't have anything in the mid lane, and their jungler wasn't able to be aggressive, wasn't able to challenge Kindred, they didn't get any of that, right? They got drags, but they didn't get anything else for it. And if you just get the dragon, it doesn't actually matter what else you do, because you're losing the rest of the map most likely. And as we saw, they did lose most of the rest of the map. So now they are looking to make some adaptations. The Rakan is first picked, again, by GMU. And I can't say it's a bad one, right?
Well, that is interesting to me, right? Because
the Alistair's up, right? The Alistair's 100% up, able to be first picked or second picked by Kennesaw. And I would absolutely love to see them pick Alistair in this first rotation. They don't need to pick it here, because you already see the Rakan, and they can't ban before you get your third pick. But picking the Alistair, I think, is critical. It is absolutely crucial to getting a strong early game, because what you need to use the Alistair for is saying, okay, Rakan's going to go in at some point. Now he's not. He's gone, right? He's completely knocked out of the fight. So it's a great way to stop the Rakan engage. It's a great way to stop most forms of dive, and you can interrupt them in the middle of their dive, and you become bulkier, and you have more CC. It's just a great support all around.
with the Gnar lock in here, top lane answer to the Urgot. We'll see whether or not it's something that Kennesaw State feel like they can pace out with Havoc in this top lane. Didn't exactly put up the best performance against Ione. Ione now onto the Gnar. This is something that's a bit more traditional for this guy. It's something that he's played a fair bit of just in previous seasons. And this time, the Xayah not off the table, so is going to be picked up, locked in there. We'll see whether or not this makes a big shakeup here for the likes of Kennesaw State, having to deal with the Lovers bot lane. Nunu and Willump, I actually like the pickup here for Vanquish again. If there's something you don't change about this comp, I think it's what Vanquish did, what was able to do with Nunu.
I think it's the thing you have to change, right? The problem with the Nunu is it looked good, but it didn't do what it had to do in the current meta. The problem with the Nunu is it doesn't challenge other junglers. It just takes the objective. And so if you get into a fight, if you get into a 2v2, if you get into an early game skirmish, he doesn't do shit. He doesn't do anything. Whoops, excuse my French, but doesn't do absolutely anything. And that's the real problem with Nunu, right? He's very, very good at taking an objective if it's a monster. But anything else, he is absolutely on the back foot. And so if you had picked Kindred, Graves, Xin Zhao, all better picks, I think, than this Nunu. And it could be the deciding factor, right? Having an aggressive early game jungler, especially to gank for the Urgot, especially to counter the Gnar, especially to maybe put the Xayah Rakan on the back foot, would be super critical.
So
but because it's Nunu, he can't do any of that.
I do want to challenge that just a little bit, because I think in theory that's definitely what you would expect to see. But Vanquish on that Nunu had basically was responsible for the only 2 engages for Kennesaw State that worked that last game, right?
But what I'm saying is he could have had a lot more effectiveness on any other jungler, right? It's good if you're good at Nunu. It's good if you can make stuff happen. But you can just pick any other jungler and do better.
Well, we'll see whether or not he can live up to the likes of this Jarvan the Fourth that is locked in for Firefly. That's the aggression.
Also, we just skipped over the fact that they have Fiddlesticks. Could be mid, could be support. He's been nerfed at both positions, in fact. So he's not strong at either anymore. And especially at the support role, he's great as a counter to Rakan because of his fear. And the Rakan speed means that the Rakan runs away about 9,000 movement speed. but he's still so squishy, and he's had his bird nerfed repeatedly. So this is going to be a very interesting pick to watch. I think the Fiddlesticks in particular doesn't do excellently in either of his remaining roles, right? He's okay as a jungler, especially as a solo queue jungler, but besides that, he's had so many nerfs thrown at him that this might be a very, very tough bot lane.
Tough bot lane indeed. Now the last pick coming down for Kennesaw State. It's going to be the LeBlanc locked in, which means that the Fiddlesticks, is going to be likely in the mid lane there. So, or I'm sorry, in the support role. I apologize. So we'll see whether or not this is something that they can really answer with. Fiddle Heimerdinger in the bot lane. That's not something that you really see a lot of, and I would be willing to go out on a limb and say as much as Enrique and Rylas probably practice this game together, I doubt they've come across this exact lane combination anytime recently. So we'll see whether or not this pocket pick for DKC can make a little bit more havoc here. It's a lot of very burst-focused damage coming out of this Kennesaw State roster, especially if they can really get a good below zero coming out with Nunu and Willump here. You could see a lot of potential action coming out, but they can just shred health bars. Problem is, the health bars on the side of George Mason, they're a little bit resistant to that kind of thing, right? I mean, you do have over here on the side of Kennesaw State the ability to shred them, but then you look it over, okay, well, there's a J4, there's the Lover's Bot lane that can get out of things, there's the Echo that he himself, can just press the reset on, there's Gnar who can go mega in a fight and just really throw you off your game with that. So, speaking of game, however, we are ready to get into game number 2 between George Mason and Kennesaw State, as we'll fix the proportions of it there, really quick and easy, make that one happen for you, and we are ready to get off to the races. Both of these teams definitely coming to play today.
And this, I think, is going to be the decisive thing, right? If Kennesaw win this game, right, they show us that the Nunu is good enough. They show us that they can win. They show us that their LeBlanc is really what needs to be, focused on. They absolutely can win. They've got LeBlanc. LeBlanc is the single strongest mid laner in the game and fantastic into Echo because the way that you can actually just demolish him, right? As soon as he goes in, chain. And then he just sits there like, wait a sec, I've made a mistake. And then he loses about half his HP and then he dies. It's great for LeBlanc. I think this is one of the best matchups she has. My worry is, and this is a big, big worry, is that bottom lane. Cleanse Rakan is hard to lock down as is. But the fact that he is cleansed means that he's going to be extremely tough for the Fiddlesticks to stop. And if he ever gets past the Heimerdinger, it's going to just be an absolute disaster. But GG gets another crack at Body Those Fools, forcing him to take that W start on half HP.
Yeah, it's definitely never what you want to do. So, not ideal for Body Those Fools. Going to reset him pretty early in this lane, and could cost him some of that early CS if it does have a potion that really just smack down charges on there. So, not as worried, and pretty comfortable, I think, just to let Echo shove this lane in. As LeBlanc can juggle pretty early off of the tower without too much trouble if you manage your waves correctly here. But look at that. Already just maintaining some of that early lane aggression seems to be kind of trademark for Body These Fools, something he loves to do in this lane. But it didn't work out for him last game, right?
No.
We saw him take 2 or 3 just definitive one-on-one early aggressive fights and kind of fed GG right off the rip.
And I think this is going to be a much better matchup for him, right? We mentioned the fact that LeBlanc just wins. It's true. She just wins against Echo, right? After level 3, I think it's her strongest point until Echo hits 6, at which point you might not be able to kill the Echo, but he can't stay in lane, right? You threaten him with so much damage, so much repeated burst, that generally he'll have to back out of lane before he even has a chance to ult to safety. Nunu coming in, though.
Find this one. That's the Ignites traded on this one. GG WTF actually taken out as he opts in for the tower shot, and not at all what he was maybe hopeful to find from that. So this time, the first blood going over the likes of Kennesaw State.
Wow.
They're off to a much prettier start with prettier draft in hand. So, Body Those Fools. Maybe just going to be able to shake off last game. That's always impressive to see when a player can really say, hey, I had a bad game, things got out of control, we started the game, what, 0-4, 0-5? Take a deep breath, reset, come back into it, and be ready to find a new footing in game number 2. That is how best of 3 series are played. That is what Kennesaw State wants to be able to do for themselves here. But Firefly already maintain more aggression, finds both blue buffs. He got his own, and now he's taken away
triple
that
buff
of Vanquish. Yeah, that's really
a Nunu, actually. So the interesting thing is, the reason he's able to triple buff that Nunu is because when he sees the gank in the mid lane, he sees Nunu walk back up towards the top side. As soon as that happens, J4 is nothing to worry about. He can just walk in free of charge towards that bottom side, take the blue buff, and he knows there's not going to be a Nunu there anytime soon to contest him, but Firefly is getting dangerously low now.
Yeah, he's pretty beat up for that one. Is forced out of the Dragon Pit. And actually, it looks like Kennesaw State say, well, you know, he just used
They got a Nunu. Might as well.
Doesn't have the smite. Let's just take this thing. The turrets are going to cause so much damage here. They know they're probably on a ward. I don't think they care too badly. They're just going to drag it out. They really do have to worry about GG here. Body of those fools is going to be, you know, the watchdog for this, keeping him in lane and actually snaring him up on a good route there.
That's almost a kill, actually. If he has the distortion soon, this should be a frag.
Yeah, Dragon is
1,
down
2,
there. GG actually
2
goes
seconds.
in further.
Yes.
And that's picked up, so it's a Dragon and another kill for Kennesaw State. The Owls waking up a little bit as we get later into the night. You know, they are nocturnal. Maybe it was just a little groggy there. So, we'll see. This is picked back up and moved in the right direction. KSU looking a little better. Probably the fiercest member of their group that they're playing today, George Mason. So, if they can hold out in the second game and eventually win it, you know, they might be.
I mean, yeah, this is going to be a clash of, at least in the group, Titans. Right, nobody else is undefeated in the group. This is it. So, if one of these two teams loses, obviously they're probably the weaker of the two teams, but they're still both very likely to get out of the group. It's just a matter of who comes out first and who comes out second.
You have to start wondering, too, on a start like this. I mean, we can't get too far ahead of ourselves here because, you know, Kennesaw State, they're up 100 gold and an Infernal. That's the net of all this right now. But, you know, we talked about how well George Mason outdrafted them in the first game. You have to wonder, was that responsible for that, you know, 23-minute clap we saw? Does it come down to draft? Does it come down to more than that, or just the last game? Because
it was draft, right, for the beginning, and then it was execution for the end. I mean, the draft certainly put them behind, but they had a very good chance to win, right? They had Irelia, super good late game, super good at just demolishing people without a tank line. They didn't have a tank line. You know, it all could have worked out. But then they really got behind. So that execution by GMU is really what cinched the game, even if it was difficult to start with.
Difficult. Havoc. They're going to have a bit of a difficult time in this top lane here. Did take the Urgot away. Don't know whether or not it's something because he plays a lot of, or just because he wanted to deny it to Ion, but Ion might be getting denied of a summoner spell here, so he's got to burn his flash to get back to tower in one piece, and that's obviously a frustrating situation if you are the Gnar, if you are the top laner that feels like you should be bullying out, to have to give up a summoner, to have to give up some priority to a gank. Speaking of a gank, though, we got one coming in. Firefly's there. There is no way Aroth gets out of that one, and George Mason puts themselves a point back on the board and takes the gold lead.
You mentioned, I mentioned earlier, actually, it's really hard to lock down a Rakan who has cleanse. Rakan's already slippery, but as soon as the stun lands, he instantly cleanses it and goes in anyway. And Aerof doesn't have more than one CC ability. The Fiddlesticks isn't in range, and so it's basically a free pickup onto the Heimerdinger. Anytime you land CC onto him, especially with such an early game AD as the Xayah, not to mention the fact that Jarvan was there as well, it's basically just a guaranteed kill.
Oh no.
Vanquish is in a tough spot here.
Speaking of guaranteed kills, this guy's way deep in enemy line. He's going to have to flash over the wall. Not guaranteed this time, as the rest of his team was there to back up, make sure that, you know, Private Ryan would be safely removed from enemy territory this time. Havoc going to take some damage back onto the way back to lane, but not too bad of a turnaround there. As since the KSU bot lane, they know that they've seen J4 around the top side. They're okay to play with a little bit more pressure here, and you get the feeling George Mason don't exactly have an answer for some of this pressure of the waves building. They're definitely clearing better. Look at that CS difference. That's staggering. That is way more than you should see at 8 minutes for almost any circumstance, unless you're running like some kind of weird double melee bottom cheese kill lane. But
Mordekaiser, Leona, cough, cough.
yeah, I mean, but a 20 CS deficit in 8 minutes here, that's bad news for A-Rock.
It's
so,
tough,
yeah.
especially when Heimerdinger is supposed to be the one that wins it. He's supposed to be the one that gets the push lead, that gets the CS lead, you know? He does fantastic at just shoving people under turrets, but he hasn't been able to get much purchase so far, right? And it's partially because of the fact,
Yeah,
comes in.
coming down. They want to find a little bit more action there as the roof does come up. Enrique locked out of that one, but here's Firefly over the wall. DKC gonna have to get over the wall himself, but doesn't get a chance to, and does go down.
Flash
Firefly
down.
now in a little bit of trouble. The Ignite will do it. Body those fools is what comes out and makes the take away. So it's a 1-for-1 trade. Support for jungler. I think KSU will be reasonably happy with that because they set another one now over on to Body Those Fools. So he's going to be in great position as a 3-0-0 LeBlanc right now.
Yeah, now it's up to him. You know, does he carry this game? Can he actually lock down the AD carry? Enrique, in particular, is going to be such a big threat because of his CS lead and the fact that he's a Xayah with 1 kill and 1 assist, right? That's a big portion of their gold advantage already, and if he continues to go unchecked, he's going to be extremely dangerous. The Gnar has a CS lead as well, but the LeBlanc has to be responsible for both of these. She has to pick a side lane, go win the side lane, and then do her best to affect the other one, either by creating space or by ganking with her jungle. That's the goal of a mid laner. That's the goal of anyone who's actually ahead, but especially when you have an assassin mid and you're on an advantage, you need that to happen.
Tough position to find yourself in. You really have to be able to execute on all the points of your composition flawlessly in a situation like that. Especially right now, if you're Kennesaw State and you have your backs against the wall like this. Meanwhile, you see Firefly roaming into the jungle now of Vanquish, potentially getting behind Havoc. We might have a little bit of a scrape on our hands getting ready in this top lane.
Nunu just farming his rocks. He doesn't even know the Jarvan's there.
Yeah, and he does know the Jarvan's there now. Is this Urgot? Havoc gonna have to get out of that one. There's Nunu to probably save the day here, but they actually want to turn it around. This is a really dangerous position. The below zero does come down. Ion actually suppressed for it. Havoc's gonna find that kill. Firefly now stands very little chance of getting out of this one, but just might with the flag
EQ.
and drag. Yeah, the cooldown was just there, so I thought they'd get him before that.
Yeah, the real problem is, even if they got the kill there, right, they're still down gold across the board, which is very, very interesting, right? And it's a good counter gank. The Urgot lasts much longer than I expected him to. And so, you know, it does work out, right? They get themselves kills. They're getting themselves a slight early game lead, especially when you're the ones that have the Urgot and LeBlanc. Great to see. But they're going to need their bot lane to do something soon.
Well, this might just be something as they're trying to get the flash out from Rylas. Enrique keeps his as he dashes on over, but won't be able to pick up too much else off of that one. Here comes Nunu in the bot lane, missing the snowball, and now on the way out. Looks like Firefly wants his vengeance from the gank in the top lane. That's going to happen. But look, DKC actually with that ultimate. Are you kidding me? And Firefly's in a little bit of trouble. DKC finds the kill for that one. He'll die for it, but he will definitely take that. It does go over to Enrique, and so maybe not the best trade there. But Kennesaw State still pulling away with another kill off of, you know, that's a gank that Firefly really wanted to make happen on the counter gank. They thought they would have that one sewn up for sure.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is everyone said, oh yeah, Nunu's dead. Oh, Urgot might be dead too, though. They've got some damage.
Let's see whether or not Havoc can pull that one off for himself here. Looks like he's going to be checked down now behind that tower. Ion finds the kill. They thought they got A-Roth, and that's the disrespect run. And Rylast maybe now in a little bit of trouble. If that crow bounces back, it does not. And so just like that, Rylast, a little bit of luck on his side there, does get out of that one in one piece. Now Vanquish here to reset this top lane, channeling that ultimate again. Really just going to be to take out the minions, but they'll be happy enough for it. Body there's fools, wants to find Enrique. There was no chance for the bot lane AD of George Mason there, but now Body has to walk out of that one. Almost dies for it, costs him the flash and the ignite, but does keep this Xayah down significantly. Speaking of down, they want to find this turret and take that down. I don't know if Vanquish is going to be able to hold this one out, though. He's probably going to back off.
There's just no way. And that's the really interesting thing, right? You say keep the Xayah down. She's still up 30 CS. She's in a fantastic spot for getting completely camped and, you know, only one death. It's bad, right, to die this early, but it's not nearly as bad as you'd expect for all the pressure they've been putting onto this bottom lane. So, in that sense, right, GMU holding together remarkably well. Their bottom lane's still a strong point on their map, and they are able to make plays off of it. And especially when you consider the fact that they have Rakan and Jarvan both walking down, plus the TP, this should be another set of kills.
Yeah, they definitely are poised to find this one. A-Rock, though, will be able to try to turn that one around. The TP is coming out from Havoc there, and Ion still wants in. That's the Pro Storm coming on through. DKC trying to spread the damage around, but just not enough, and they separate. They are divided and instantaneously conquered. Havoc actually not even going to follow through with that teleport down. So 4 members from George Mason in the bot lane against only A-Roth and DKC. Spells out disaster as the kills come on through. And now Body Those Fools is really only here to reset the lane pressure. Maybe bounce a wave or two, but 4-0-0 LeBlanc wasted in that situation. It was just a better roam, better potential, and heads-up play coming out of George Mason. Brings us back to a tie score, the gold lead. Back to GMU's hands, especially with that tower in the top lane taken away a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and what looked so good for an early game for KSU is starting to fall apart a little bit. Actually, a lot of it, in part to their bottom lane. 5 of their 6 deaths have come from this singular lane, and it's kind of the problem with Fiddlesticks, right? It's just there's almost no way to make that champion consistently win a lane.
See if he can consistently come out with some damage here, and the answer is no. The 1-3-1 Fiddlesticks not able to harass too much under the tower. Rylas is not in the best of positions, but we'll see whether or not he actually gets caught out on this ward. The answer, not going to happen here. This is a pinch to the top side, though. Jungle in danger now for Havoc. Ion's behind him. He's trying to find the pressure to go mega. The Firefly's there to keep it up, and we don't even need the Mega Gnar. The Diamond 5 top laner of Kennesaw State is taken out and away, shut down, but now they will be potentially able to lock back this tower. They're going to trade an outer bottom for an inner top, though. Firefly and Ion are definitely just there to keep this pressure rolling. And that's going to be a huge advantage now for George Mason, as they are looking to pick up some of that same momentum that they had in the first game.
Yeah, now it looks like they're going to be able to convert it as well. I mean, you want to talk about ways to get back into the game. They've taken all this gold from the bottom lane, and they were just spreading it around the map, right? They got their jungler lead, they got their AD lead, the AD is now winning bottom lane, and the jungler is winning top. They're ganking, they're forcing, they're pressuring other side lanes, and it's just making the most of the gold that they actually have. KSU haven't made the same kind of moves, and it's because their mid laner is the one with all the gold, so when he goes to a side lane, he picks up another kill, but he doesn't get things for it, right? He gets the kill and nothing else.
Speaking of getting killed and getting nothing else, DKC on Fiddlesticks is taken out, punished very heavily there, and the Rift Herald goes over the side of George Mason to boot, so not a good position to be in if you are the Owls right now, as it does seem like the game's just getting a little bit further away from them here now. This is the part of the game where you start to ask yourself, how do you equalize some of this pressure? How do you reset? What irons are hot for you? And what tools do you really have at your disposal? Because right now it looks like it's all on the shoulder of Body Those Fools. This guy needs to be in a position to really carry this game. I mean, you have LeBlanc, right? You have 4 kills on it. That is the makings of being able to really just kind of smash out anybody on this George Mason composition. Not really worrying too much about how many kills they have. Should still be able to pop Enrique right now with little trouble. Should probably be able to kill Firefly with little trouble, given the items that he's built out here. So you just have to find a way to put yourself in those positions, but that's Rift Herald summoned in that mid lane, and there's nobody here from Kennesaw to defend. There could be 2 towers going down on this one. We'll see whether or not that's going to be able. The first one does come down, the second one. Now, a question of whether or not Body Those Fools can make it happen, but he's trying to 1v2 now against Enrique and GG, and GG has that ability to just pop back with the ultimate, so that is going to go down for Body Those Fools. Now, meanwhile, DKC's on the flash out. Same with Asos.
Echo stun.
Yeah, no way to get out of this one. Over the wall, Ion is going to be there to finish that one off, and Jelly finally proccing against the tower here, but they've already found 2. Only 3 remain for Kennesaw State, and they're so beat up at this tower. Probably going to go down a little below half already. Going to get just shredded for the remainder And George Mason University continuing their pressure out. 18 minutes, they found 4 towers. They want to find their fifth of this game. They want to crack open an inhibitor tower right now. I think they're getting a little ahead of themselves. Havoc is here to fight. That's the Crow Storm coming down as well. Fiddlestick's going to be able to chase off. And Firefly punished for that move. Not the best stick around from GMU, so they do give a little bit back at the end. And that's not exactly ideal, but I guess the good news for him is it does go over to DKC, who's somebody that had an easy time shutting down thus far. The chase is still on, though. They want to find GGWTF. You can't really steer that snowball too well, but yeah, I say that. Vanquish is right there with it. We'll try to continue this.
He might actually be going down, and he does.
For it. Yikes.
I mean, the real problem is, even if you don't die for it, it's so aggressive that they need to get some massive stuff for it. Getting the Xayah is a great start towards that. They're going to be able to convert for at least 1 turret. Thinking about the second one, but with Baron up in just a minute, Dragon, not much more time than that. They do have to consider the fact that they need to time these backs properly so that they can actually contest the major objectives, right? Getting the Baron, getting the Drag would help them towards their ultimate goal of actually being able to crack the base and win the game. So they need to back soon, and they need to do it so that they can actually set up for these other objectives.
Right, Mountain Drake, something that they found a lot of last game. Baron as well, something on the table here. Kennesaw definitely look to be in much more of a position to contest that, especially when you start to look at the way some of their composition is rounding out, especially DKC here, who has finished that Zhonya's Hourglass, arguably the most important item onto a Fiddlesticks in the supporting role here. So whether or not they're going to be bold enough to really take these fights is going to be kind of called into question. But, you know, with all the AoE that they're going to be able to create just on their bottom half of the roster, or I'm sorry, between Vanquish, Aeroth, and DKC, right? They really can challenge just any pit objective fairly well. I think this is going to be a strong point for Kennesaw coming forward throughout this. The problem is they need to not get picked on. They need to not get shoved out. And just like this, I mean, you see Havoc here. He's in a really dangerous position with 4 members around him, and he doesn't even know it. GGWTF wants to start this. I think Rylast and Firefly want to finish it, but Havoc flashing out of that one. Just going to scurry on off. He's got a lot of legs. Helps him move pretty fast.
Red team's turret.
That was gone down here. Start of the day. Ion trying to find what he can. He's silenced. He's feared. He's running on back, and not going to be too much there. KSU going to back off of this one here, though. They don't want to worry too much about the Baron. Did draw members from GMU up to it now.
Okay, there we go. My internet apparently was dying, or Discord was dying. I wasn't really sure what that was, but I'm back.
Oh, well. Welcome back.
I think we're on US Central, and East is the only one that actually works. But yeah, sorry to interrupt the flow there. But
happens to the best of us. Only so much you can do with Discord here. KSU started on the Baron, fell off a little bit. Now Dragon.
yeah, but the Nuna from behind, they're gonna look for another engage. The Rakan gets 3 of them, but in the Fiddlesticks ult, they all run and Havoc onto a killing spree. Maybe this is the fight, and the KSU that we have been waiting to see. They get their first pick. Only one, but will it be enough? GMU have been sticking around. They're looking to re-engage possibly, but the J4's so far off this Dragon that they don't even have a chance of smiting it.
No, it should be just Dragon locking over fourth side of Kennesaw State. That's Body of those fools hopping over with the Distort. Takes the blast one out for good measure just to make sure. So Mountain Drake locked up in a way as well. That's going to be fairly important when you keep in mind that the Baron is an objective so highly contested on the table right now. So Kennesaw State, despite the fact they're down a little bit in gold, certainly down in towers on the macro presence. They've been playing the objective game a lot better this time. They got so many dragons last time, but they didn't get really any towers in return for it. No pressure or priority around Baron. This time, they have the towers, or at least a couple in answer. They're trying to reset the priority around Baron right now with Vision, and we'll see whether or not they can make anything of it. Zion's all the way down there without a teleport, actually. If they wanted to potentially try to force something, now might actually be the time. They should actually know.
Baron's on the table.
Yeah.
It's very much on the table. I mean, they've shown that they can win fights. They've shown that they can get picks and have them be successful. And the fact that they have Nunu means they have pretty much a guaranteed secure on the objective. So if they start this, they would have had to start it earlier, right? Zion is already back up towards the mid lane. And, you know, that means that they're not going to be able to just cheese this out. They have to deal with the Gnar now. They have to deal with the actual 5v5. And they're waiting around for so long. DKC baiting now towards the pit, but will they be able to win it? back again they go.
This is such a tough position for Kennesaw State. Keep in mind, this is the time of the last game that they lost. They were losing the game right around the 23-minute mark here. Now they're contesting Baron in this second game. Snowball's coming to DKC a little early on the Crow Storm, but the big thing is that they have split the team. There's the lovers. DDWTF is trying to get in though, and what a pinch from Firefly as he finds Body. Those fools are going to try to get a little bit more out of this one. The AoEs of Kennesaw burn so early, it's just not enough as Vanquish pops Zazanias just to try to stay alive there. I'm sorry, the stopwatch even. And DKC is going to go down as well. That's the ace completed from the likes of George Mason. We talked about them losing the game at 23 minutes, Kennesaw. They might have effectively just lost this game off of a Baron call now. GMU is going to be able to take so much off of this one.
Yeah, and they got it off the backs of a brilliant engage, right? The bait from the Rakan, you think that they've got the chase until you realize they don't have enough mobility. The Rakan turns around, instant charm on the entirety of the team. The Gnar ultimate, it didn't land on a lot of people, but it didn't matter at that point. The Jarvan had already killed a bunch of them. The Xayah was still alive. She's free hitting. Everybody's contributing to the fight, and they just win it. A very clean cleanup of that team fight. And Baron to boot means that they are going to look to siege an inhibitor now, crack open the base of Kennesaw, and try to close out this series 2-0. That Baron call, in fact, might be, as you said, the reason KSU goes down.
Well, we'll see. Their backs are definitely against the wall here. They still have some damage threats, as a couple more members of this team have come online. Havoc, in particular, someone that comes to mind with 4 kills to his name. Body those fools, obviously the first one to keep Kennesaw in this game for so long and trying to turn it back around. But how do you turn back around what's effectively an 8 to 9k gold deficit here at 25 minutes? It's a tall order to make. They need to find the right fight or the right picks, and the right fight didn't really work out for them last time, but you know, their engage didn't actually connect either. Enrique and Rylas were so slippery that it bought time for GG and Firefly to get in there and Ion to come play the cleanup. This time, they might have themselves a pick. Firefly in a bit of a dangerous situation. Rylas is there, but it's only Rylas, and not so much that this Rakan can do. So Firefly actually going to get shut down here. That's another kill going over now to this LeBlanc 5 for the likes of Body Those Fools. And I think they'll be pretty happy with this takeaway, especially actually if Havoc can hold out here in this top lane. It's a good effort by George Mason to keep pressure in all lanes. That's what you want to do, is get all 3 of your lanes, maximizing that Baron output. But it did cause some danger for them. But they answer back with a little danger of their own as GG slays Havoc there. And we've lost a tower in the top lane for Kennesaw State. An inhibitor likely next on the docket. The mid lane not in too great a shape either.
And this is the real problem, right? The Urgot, he tries to go in for the execute, but Gnar has the Gnar bar. He goes up for it, gets a bunch of health back, and then is no longer in the danger zone. But he's in the danger zone for LeBlanc.
Yeah, Ion picks that one up for himself. DKC now, and Ion Body are gonna actually have a great position on GG, but you can't go into minions like that, especially not when Echo has some of his combo here. Now here's the avalanche coming out from Nunu, but Vanquish not able to take that blue buff away. It is gonna go, I believe, over to Enrique. I think he got that one picked up for himself there, so just like that, Kennesaw do what they can to stay alive, but their base is cracked wide open, and it's a tough position to find themselves in. Now GG, being in tough positions, they fight.
Finally getting it is, I think, kind of the thing of this game, right? It's just GMU, they push and they finally get an objective. They finally get the turret. They finally get the Baron. It all seems like inevitability in a sense, because they just keep getting objective and kill and gold lead after another, right? They're up to near 10k at 27 minutes, and if I know anything about gold leads, a 20% gold lead is a pretty freaking massive one, and it looks like they are going to be able to use this to close out game number 2. But given the misplays we've seen, right, there have been some misplays. If they make a mistake, they could be punished for it. The LeBlanc is big, the Urgot is present, and if they step too far, there is so much CC on the side of KSU that they could absolutely get ripped to shreds for it.
Yeah, it's a matter of this being George Mason's game to lose, right? Because they certainly could make the mistakes that would allow Kennesaw to get back into this. Even if Kennesaw does everything right, they don't win if George Mason responds right every time, correct? So it's a little bit tricky here. They have to find the perfect picks here. They have to really capitalize on the fact that George Mason are so dedicated to this split push, especially from Ion here, and so committed to the idea of splitting up and separating. It's a hard thing to punish, but if you can make it happen, ASU has a chance to hold out in this game. Tricky now is all members of George Mason just circling like sharks in the water around these owls. We'll see whether or not they can crack the inhibitors here. They find the bottom tower, which means that basically an inhibitor tower and a half left. The mid lane is pretty well beat up, but GG is going to get pretty well beat up here too. He ults to buy a little time. Pulls in the Zonyas too, but there's just no chance he's getting out of this one alive. The flash there.
You'd say that. Oh, if there wasn't an ultimate.
Not see any way he was getting out of that one.
No fear beyond death. He gets out of that, right? He's got so much movement speed, he could just run the heck out of there. But fear beyond death reels him back in. I mean, beyond that, he was actually living until that hit. So there was a world in which, you know, fear beyond death isn't up and he gets out, but it wasn't this one. And the pickup, though not super impactful, just buys KSU a little more time, right? The problem is
everything they've done lately is just, you know, every little move
buying
they made
more
in these
time
last
isn't a good
5 minutes has just bought them some more time.
I mean, that's the real problem. But buying more time isn't a good thing. The Xayah scales. Heimerdinger does not. The mid laner, Echo versus the Blanc, pretty much the same. But Gnar versus Urgot, I mean, he's just going to do more and more percent health damage the longer the game goes. The Urgot is just going to get tankier. So if you want to talk about just damage threats, the fact that, again, GMU have 2 ranged siege 80 carries in essence with the mini Gnar and the Xayah, their composition is just looking a lot better as we go towards this super late game. And it means KSU have time constraints, I guess is the best way to put it, right? They have to actually take these fights. If they don't win them, they will lose the game.
Tough position to be in, especially being 1 game down in this series already. 10k gold on the button as well. It's a really hard uphill battle now for Kennesaw State. But as tumultuous as these waters are, we'll see whether or not it's something that the Owls can outlast. About 30 more seconds till Baron, and that's going to be the real challenge here. GG. You get away from the snowball. A little hop over the wall. No huge surprises there. The pigs are coming down onto Ion. They want to get him out of here. I think he smelled the danger, and the Boomerang will keep Havoc from getting away too much. Now, had they just baited out KSU enough to get this inhibitor, it might be Vanquish and Arof trying to get what they need to. But here's Firefly. They're over the wall as well. DKC's going to get into this one. That's going to be the silences. That could actually be big for the likes of KSU. He's over the wall now with the Crowstorm. Enrique's in some trouble. The feathers fly, but it's only used defensively to have to get back out of there. It's a double stun from Kennesaw, and this could be big. Actually, they're going to be able to execute now onto Firefly, but at what cost? Because the inhibitor is in trouble now. The snowball's coming through from Nunu. Can he get there in time? Just pushes him out and actually pushed more towards the bottom side. Keeps both members off. Are you kidding me? They keep their inhibitors alive yet again and find a kill out of it. If that is not buying time, I don't know what is, because they're in no better shape for the game. But they do just live to fight another death.
Just barely. And because of that, and because of the fact that Baron is up and they have no jungler, KSU are making a very bold call. It looks like they're going to try and attempt to take this Baron, the second of the game, for themselves. But they need to start it now if they want to have a chance. If they don't start it now, and they do get pushed in, they're just going to lose it all.
Pushed in. This is the chance to maybe have it happen. Here's Nunu coming around again, but look at the Zonyas to stop that one dead in its tracks. Meanwhile, the Mega Gnar is going to be a huge one, but GGWTF getting right in onto Arof. The Zonyas just in time is going to save him. Or the stopwatch, actually. That's a 32-minute stopwatch from Arof after 4 deaths. Just manages to pull it out, and now Kennesaw might have their sights set towards Baron. It looks like they're trying to get the vision around it. I don't know if that's the wisest decision right now, especially Firefly having completed that Guardian Angel. It's a really tricky slope that they find themselves on for KSU, because they're going to pour a lot of effort into trying to kill that J4, and they might just get blasted doing it. But they brought us back to a relatively even keel in kills here, despite the fact still 10k gold down. Mostly due to CS and 6 turrets on the difference there, as well as about 40 CS in the bot lane, 60 in the top. It's a huge difference, and it's one that's going to give George Mason all the advantage they need around this game.
But keep in mind, George Mason don't yet have an inhibitor down, so they can't actually stall for forever because there's no super wave. There's no eventuality of the base getting sieged, right? And that's the problem. GMU need to either make a call to do something with this fight, or they're not going to get anything done. They need their side lanes to be pushing, not pushed against them. And because of the fact that they don't have an inhibitor yet, that would be a higher priority, given the fact that the inhibitor would let them take the Baron or take the base at time. Gnar in the bot lane, TP is up. If KSU commits to this Baron, Gnar can TP in.
Yeah, it's not the 4v5 situation they want here, and they're just posturing with priority around it.
Baiting it.
Yeah, Gnar's actually running on up already. I don't know that I love that, because the potential to take that last bot lane tower could be huge, and that would really force KSU in a position when you have the teleport. I don't see the reason to push as he has, but maybe he just wants to find a lane with the open inhibitor. Maybe he just wants to find the perfect flank, and he knows he can do that on foot better than the teleport. But here's GG starting things early. Here's Gnar coming in as well. The ult back from Echo, the Time Winder, to get that one back out of things. Meanwhile, the fight is breaking out in earnest. It's going to be Kennesaw State. They find Aroth actually gone down already, and now Rylas trying to get in with the damage here. Enrique finds the second one. That's Ion getting in on the Havoc. He's down out of this one. DKC going to go down, and just like that, it is an ace coming out for George Mason, and they have won the game on the back foot there. This is only going to be the slow, steady march on through, but with 30 seconds onto Aroth, who's all but useless against this composition right now anyway, there is just no chance that the Owls of Kennesaw State come back from this one. That is George Mason going 2 for 0 in this series, finding themselves the lead in not only the series, but the groups, as they do remain undefeated, top of their group, and top of the only other previously undefeated school, Kennesaw State. They put up a much better game, too. They held out for as long as they could, but in the end, it was GMU, the winners this time around, and they will graciously take that victory, adding 2-0 to Kennesaw State over that already fantastic track record that you see before you there. So congratulations to George Mason as they do take it away. You know, I gotta say, Kennesaw, they held out a lot better in the second game, especially, you know, that first Baron fight that really just upended the game, turned things around on them massively, and got them bopped. Happened at, what, 23 minutes? We were talking about that on the clock?
Yeah.
They held out for another 13 minutes of play, maybe 12 minutes of play after that, and, you know, really showed a lot of fortitude, a lot of strength, and you know, some potential places where they could have gotten back into the series, but it just wasn't enough at the end of the day. George Mason, they picked a better scaling comp into the late game both times, and they executed better in the early game, and it really seems, kind of in retrospect there, that Kennesaw picking the Heimer Hill to die on, not their best effort, because nothing really managed to follow through in a late game with that pick in particular.
I mean, the Heimerdinger is a good pick, right? Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic pick. The problem is it's so hard to utilize properly, right? You have to have not only the knowledge of where you can push, when you can push, how much you can actually bully, but how far you can extend the Heimerdinger, right? Where can you actually take it? How can you push it to the limits? And then what didn't help, game number 2, that Fiddlesticks is so nerfed. It's so hard to make a case for Fiddlesticks support, in especially Alistair was up. Alistair was up and able to be picked, and it just wasn't. Right. So what I would say is that this was, you know, a little bit of a misdraft, but also just GMU playing very, very cleanly. I mean, what can you say? But even with the draft being as it was, I think it's still GMU 2-0 for very convincing reasons. They played macro well. They played their micro pretty clean. They lost a couple fights, but overall, it's still the 2-0.
Well, we'll see. Kind of curious to keep an eye on GMU throughout the rest of this season, because last year they were kind of that next team in when it came to the playoffs there, behind NC State and UT Dallas. Southern region, a little bit more of a toss-up one here, especially this coming year, as we have had some shakeups. So it's a university I'm curious to keep eyes on as well. Kennesaw State, we'll see if they do improve throughout the year. Not exactly sure whether or not they're going to have a chance to move on with somebody like George Mason in their group, right? But all that said, it's a huge pickup for GMU today. They remain 2-0, not only undefeated in their current entire series wins, but undefeated in games as well. That's 8 games on the day, 4 series wins. So a nice little record for themselves here as we do wind down. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Kyle Corvus Crow. I've been joined by Jeff Zeta Schnurr. I want to say thank you to Kennesaw State and George Mason University for appearing on our Southern Showdown here this evening. We will be back with a little bit more League of Legends. It's Monday and Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, all throughout the rest of this year. I know we're marching up to pretty daggone close to Christmas, so it's all going to be right here on C-Star League 2. Maybe, just maybe, we'll talk our way into a little bit of action on the main channel before too long here, but in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week, and hope you stay well till then. Thanks.
As we bound